we enter fall of 41, and I think I've got a fairly major factor that's affecting the balance here that I screwed up. But again, really everything kind of centers on the ships. Like the other shipbuilding issue, this one kind of has affected both sides, but essentially it's because this chart is not easily accessible. It's not in the charts and tables, so I never run across it, never see it. And when I'm looking up and trying to figure out how you build things, it's not always clear what takes shipbuilding points, what doesn't. And this is the chart you need to be able to find. Now, I might have made this mistake even if it was on the charts and tables, but I would really like to have it there because I have to constantly look things up. So, as you can see, a number of things don't cost shipbuilding costs when they're repaired, but everything costs them when it's being constructed. But it's kind of confusing, right? Because, like, 5-factor ships cost 5 ship points. Yeah, well, sort of. They cost 1 in each of 5 turns. They don't cost 5 all at once. But what's really obnoxious here, or what's really affected things, is subs, ASWs, and transports all cost shipbuilding points when you build them, but not when you repair them. But when you repair anything bigger than a cruiser, and I'm not sure why you would build battle cruisers and such not, because they're kind of obnoxious that way, you end up paying shipbuilding points for those repairs. And they also take different amounts of time and everything. The whole shipbuilding situation is so much more complex than the original Third Reich, and then the rules that were used in the old Global War, Advanced Third Reich Rising Sun. And this is actually a big factor in terms of some of the extra weight to the game. Overall, I haven't seen too much advantage to all these extra rolls. They add a significant amount of complexity without adding much pleasure for me. Then again, I'm not always that into the naval side of things, but I feel like the ground game is very simplistic, to tell you the truth. It's the old Third Reich system, more or less, and it really doesn't go into a lot of detail about the units and their capabilities. Are all pretty straightforward. The old Third Reich naval system was very, very abstract. The addition of named carriers in Rising Sun started the floodgates, right? You really needed something like carriers over here to handle the Pacific War. The naval combat system that was handled for Empire of the Rising Sun for the Pacific War actually worked pretty well. It has those patrols and such not. It's much more complicated, but it provided with still an abstract view that was very interesting and gave a very what I thought a very realistic depiction of the naval situation over here. Now, what do I know? I'm not a naval expert. I'm not an anything expert, right? So the obvious decision to move that naval system over to the European map, you could do that essentially with those two games. You could just say, well, why not use the same naval system? The decision, though, to start individuating between the battleships and setting up these different types of naval factors has really burdened the game heavily. And I'm not sure to great effect, but maybe the point was because the naval system over here was the strong point in terms of the military side of the game, in terms of additions that the Advanced Third Reich system had, the decision with the World of War and people who loved naval probably were more attracted to the game was to blow that into more depth. So, having specific named ships and such not was often one of the criticisms Third Reich had, what's that? I'm sending 3 factors or 2 factors out to raid. What does that mean? Well, now we have that spelled out, but man, at what a cost. And it's a cost which has made the game much, much less approachable for me. It's a game that already has had a lot of rules back in this stage, and now it's got a lot of rules in an area where I'm less interested in. One of the things I always liked about Third Reich was how abstract it kept things, and I felt like the Advanced Third Reich system kept that. This is decided to keep that abstraction for the most part at about the same level. The ground battles, the diplomacy, the research is all at a very abstract level, but it covers all the bases. And the naval was the same way. And now they've kind of, I think, put too much detail on the naval. Of course, again, I'm kind of an anti-naval person when it comes to games. I have trouble with the naval rules all the time. All right, anyway. I'm not bothering with winter die rolls because nobody's doing anything particularly in either of the areas that require winter die rolls. There is winter elsewhere. There's going to be winter effects here, so the armor's not going to be able to pursue as much. The rules for winter are a little weirdly written. It sounds like the only place where you get to reduce the winter might be Russia, but that's ridiculous because one of the places that's left out is Siberia, and, so I assume you can reduce the winter even if it's just rain in the Mediterranean or whatever. So we're kind of going with that as the rule. But the only place where it specifically calls out you can reduce it is over in Russia. There's sort of an implication that you could reduce it everywhere. If it didn't specifically call it out in Russia, I would definitely just say, well, you can reduce it everywhere. But as it is, well, that's what we have. Alrighty. There was no diplomacy for the Axis, so now I'm on the movement. I just caught myself with a problem where the Axis could actually swing around, cut off the Allied supply here in Bergen. It's possible that the Allies maybe could do something to isolate the Axis armor there, but under normal conditions it would have a trace through here, so that's no big deal. Rather than allow that to happen, I'm going to pull back here. I use these units in the attrition, so they kind of have to stay there, but that other one doesn't. It still may open up an attack. Well, it does open up an attack on Bergen, which is likely to cut off the Allied supply source. Really very much in the same kind of position I was in with WIF, with the what the hell do I do? Because of the interleaved sequence of play, the way it all works, you really have to kind of have this solid plan of what you want to do for a turn. And to do that, you have to really understand the whole game. And unfortunately, I'm trying to understand the game and trying to relearn it. I think when I played it before, I had this same problem. Not this game, but when I played the A3R stuff. And I know I do with Hitler's War too, where the whole, wow, I've got to try to figure out what I'm doing navally along with what I'm doing by land. And I end up just kind of not doing much because of it. So, I don't have any real overriding strategy here. I mean, I could try to move resources down into Libya, but I'm not positive that I can support that. So it feels dangerous to do so. I don't have the diplomacy to swing any of these Balkan states into my hands, and really I'm not sure they're going to help me. I mean, the US is here. They're going to start screwing me. What do I do? It's time to fortify Europe as far as I can tell, and I don't have much of it. And the Ruskies are going to be coming, although, I can probably actually hold tensions there down to some extent and just try to hold out as long as I can. And really a similar situation over here with Japan. Maybe they shouldn't be chasing China down. They're in a pretty good shape in terms of the amount of tension that there is with the US. If I get a good roll, I can take this hex. Of course, the Chinese can deny me it, but then I can take this hex. They can't deny me everything without losing a lot of units that are pretty decent and kind of important to them. For naval action, for what it's worth, the Italians sailed up, brought the German forces down to Africa. The Brits decided, I split up. I've been kind of not really paying attention properly to task forces. This shouldn't be a task force, actually, but I'm going to leave it here on the map for that. These guys shouldn't actually be here. I should have just combat groups or whatever in here to record what's what. But it's easier for me if I put the ships out here, because keeping them down here, it's kind of tough to view who's what. 2 American fleets intercepted successfully using a strategic card. We also have a tactical card, so we get an extra die for search. And we get 1 die because there's 1 active group. We have no air power or anything else present. And we gotta roll a 5 to succeed. If we succeed in a 5, I think they're able maybe to pull back, but I'm not sure. Anyway. We did not get a 5, which means that the Germans can abort their mission at this point. And that means none of this really had any great effect. I'll put this here because it shouldn't exist. And the American fleets go back and they're tired now. They've been used. I don't know if this is visible through this, but it looks like this wonderful little mushroom cloud action going on out there. So it turns out and I'm really creeping through this game at a slow pace. The actual play of the game is pretty quick, but the rules lookups, all the bookkeeping, it's making it so that mainly the rules lookups are making it so that I just don't want to play. So, you know, I started this turn, this Winter 41 turn, yesterday morning. I'm just about through the Axis turn, basically. And not because I've been playing a lot, just because I don't want to face this crap. But I ran into something kind of interesting that Gathering Storm generated, which is a counter mix problem. I don't think this would happen in in fact, I know it wouldn't happen in A World at War Alone, but there is something kind of silly in play, which is there's a 3-3 Italian naval air. Now, it's not something without purpose, but it's something that can't ever be on a carrier. Carriers, their carriers are all CVLs, they can only hold 2. And because of the extra CVLs that Gathering Storm adds, there aren't actually enough counters, 1-1s and or 1-3s and 2-3s, to load up all the carriers. Well, actually there are. No, there aren't. Well, there are. But I accidentally built too much air and ended up left with an empty carrier, a 1-3 air built that I could put on that carrier, a 1-3 air over here, and a 3-3 air on the board. And not enough 2-3s to cover what's going on. So what ends up happening is I've got this one upside down to say it's a 2, or inverted to say it's a 2-3, so that I can put the 1-3s on top of the planes. If I screw up and give the Italians an extra naval air, I don't really care that much. It's also going to make problems, like if this one loses a factor, I don't have a factor to lose. I have countermix problems here. That can happen with any of the countermixes, the regular army air, etc. If you're not careful in kind of consolidating them, if you end up with a lot of 1-point units everywhere, then take a hit on a somewhat larger unit. Or if you just build the entire countermix somehow. Anyway, strangely enough, I'm not used to this happening in the old Third Reich, but there's so many different options to spend stuff on. I don't have my German countermix built, mainly because of the damn navies, and I probably overpaid on, well, I know I overpaid on some of them, but I don't have my countermix built, and I'm out of BRPs. I was trying not to spend my BRP total and save some so that I would get some growth. Well, that ain't gonna happen. The need to build, and in fact, I didn't repair these, but that's okay. These guys don't need shipbuilding. I built all my new submarines using my German shipbuilding capacity. So I didn't build any of their actual ships, and their ships are getting delayed. I don't think the German Navy is going to be of much use. That big Italian Navy I built, you know, it's going to get kind of shuttered aside when the U.S. Navy starts coming into play for real. But right now the U.S. Navy is needed to support, you know, some sort of invasions or something. All right, I still have to build the Japanese though. It's kind of a close run thing. The British resistance table, even with the U.S. in the war, although their tensions were high enough, they probably were actually better off before the U.S. entered the war. The U.S. enters in the war, it's only worth 1. Their tensions at 40 or higher is worth 2. But they have like 3 diplomatic points, I think, to begin with. And then when we looked at the number of units that were missing, they ended up with like -2 from that. And if, you know, we'll see at the end of the turn, it's not going to be low enough, but because they have a naval advantage as well, which has actually gone up. But it was closer than I thought it would be, and that probably means earlier in the year it was closer than I thought as well. British surrender isn't that huge a thing as far as I can tell. The Commonwealth continues to fight on, the US can stage elsewhere, and the Brits will eventually come back into the war. So you don't fully, it's more like a Hitler's war type of Britain than you know, what you'd kind of expect. I think in WIF, if the Brits surrender, they're largely out of it. They can come back again, but I think they're much reduced. I don't think they are here. Okay, so opening things up for the Allies, they're going to spend their points in Spain. Now, if these are either use them or lose them. So the Russians are not going to spend their points in Romania because there's a big bonus in favor of the Germans in Romania, and they just can't overcome it. It was a defensive move. So was the Spanish one, to tell you the truth, the 2 points in there. Sweden was what we hoped to move, and we succeeded with that. But the Spanish, it ends up being my 2 points. No modifiers apply, but there's a 1 point mod against me. So I think it's still worth rolling with the bonus, but we'll see. Okay, we end up with a 3 or 4. That's current policies. That's not going to change. Spain is at a 3 anyway, so I'm not going to even mark down the difference there. And I guess we just move forward. Well, I guess it's torch time, and the U.S. forces, along with their Navy, have moved them down for an invasion at Casablanca. There's nothing to oppose them, so they're getting in and they're going to get a bridgehead and all that. But the one interesting thing is they're attacking a Vichy colony. There's essentially no modifier because nobody has any DPs or anything like that in France, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. But I'm not going to bother looking it up. We roll a 4, so the colony essentially disintegrates and no one controls it. What that's going to mean is that, you know, the U.S. can capture that territory pretty quickly by just taking Rabat, and then they can continue on into Algeria, etc. I'm going to want to start sending some BRPs to the Brits. Last turn, I really didn't have a lot of extra shipping in my transports. This turn, I'm not shipping troops over. I do have some danger potential, though, which is that I may want to try to stay away from these guys. And they may actually be able to intercept the transport. I'll probably try to send things up through the Orkneys, but because I don't have the U.S. fleet protecting, and there is a force present to intercept, I've got some potential problems with trying to transport goods through the Atlantic right now. Except, of course, there's the I can unflip my navies at any time, so now I have to look through the rules quite extensively to try to figure out, can I indeed unflip those navies? Or is an invasion some sort of special thing, like any air activity, basically, that prevents that? Damned if I know. You know, the way these rules are written, I almost just want to say, screw it, I'm going to unflip them because whatever. I think I've been actually, the sum of my cheating's been favoring the Allies, though. Although that earlier attack on France was a major cheat for the Axis, the shipbuilding costs, which they've been heavily hit with, etc., are definitely an instance there. So I kind of want to make sure that I don't cheat in favor of them, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. You know? To get how stupid these uninversion rules are and everything. So here we've got the same kind of wording where whenever the rules state that an air or naval unit is inverted until the end of the turn, that means the unit may not be uninverted, da-da. And here in this example, or this little parenthetical telling you that there are things that do this, this points you, I think, to the correct air rule. But 21.31 says, for example, air and naval units which carry out operations during the player turn. Okay, well that sounds pretty damning. I'm not going to be able to unflip these, so I've got problems in terms of, you know, any BRP grants, and in fact my oil grant in general may be at risk because I've got to deliver this oil. The Brits used 5 oil. I got to get that 5 oil back. Well, yeah, except when I come over to the rule, they say 21.3. Let's put more markers in this thing. 21.311, inversion after use. After performing any of the above functions, naval units are inverted until uninverted in accordance with 33.7, which is the rule I just talked to. It doesn't say anything about them being done. And over here, it says, during any player turn, uninverted naval units which are unimpaired by supply problems carry out one, but no more than one of the operations set out in the naval activities table. That seems to indicate that I won't be able to carry out another regular naval activity. Let's see if we can find that table. Probably can't. My feeling is that although... There we go. Alright, we got some words here. Okay, it doesn't say anything about inversions being for the entire turn, but all of these are singular, you know? So why is the general rule for both air and naval written? I mean, they're all handled singular by whatever the hell rule I was on, you know? Why the hell would they write the rule book so it sounds like the general case is you can uninvert this shit whenever the fuck you want, you know? It's like, it's the craziest ass rule book, and it's got so much of this kind of thing. You can always do this, except in a few exceptional cases, and then, yeah, no. We were lying to you. You can almost never do this. There's a few exceptional cases where you can, which have to do with the SW box moving to it and stuff like that, and I don't understand half of this shit, because the rule book's written like a piece of fucking crap. You know, in terms of, even as a reference, it's shit, right? I mean, it's unreadable in terms of absorbing the rules. I really do not remember the old rules being this way, but maybe I just wasn't as careful with them because I didn't, you know, I wasn't playing with someone and I wasn't playing on camera. These things decrease my enjoyment a great deal, but they probably make me actually come closer to playing by the rules. I probably just said, screw it, I'll play how I understand. But I sure don't, well, they didn't have the oil rules, so there wasn't this uninversion ability, you know, but it really seems to me like the quality of the rules has decreased since the last version of the game, which was an improvement over Third Reich in terms of quality. More complex, but better quality rules from what I remember. And they've added so much crap to it, and it's just, wow. And Gathering Storm shows you what Mr. Harper is capable of when faced with designing a game from scratch on his own and writing the rule book, as opposed to trying to follow the old Avalon Hill path there. It's just, I think the further you go into this system, the worse and worse it starts to get. I think that the Third Reich Rising Sun was well done. I wonder, you know, I don't know. I think the design process has become too insular, and I would bet you that the entire A World at War design process, like Gathering Storm, is put under this, yeah, I don't need a developer, I can do this by myself. I'm in charge of the project. I'll be the developer, but I'm the designer because I want that credit too. And most of the ideas are mine, so, you know, but I'll let other people hammer them out or whatever. It just isn't working, whatever the hell is being done. Now, Gathering Storm is so much worse, but man, trying to follow out this oil rule and stuff, it's just hell. It's not going to matter. If I come in up here, there's almost no chance of intercepting that crap. So, it's 13 hexes away. I think I get 2 dice. So, the Allies are going to be able to get their resources in through the Orkneys. And what's important there is this fleet protects out to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, out to about here. So any interception really has to be made in this hex, cutting up this way, and avoiding that range. We haven't taken into account everything, but you know, it pretty much looks like it's impossible to intercept the Allied shipments without a lot better situation than we've got. Okay, let me close the window. I got these goddamn air blowers outside. So, in addition to what was before kind of a pleasant little bookkeeping exercise, it's starting to get really annoying at this point. I don't know why. I mean, everything about the game is just really starting to annoy me. But in this case, first of all, I had like only 2 Chinese units. Wait, I got this too. That weren't built. And I don't know if I can even move this thing through SR. Which to me seems to indicate that I probably failed to do an attrition of combat with the Japanese. Now, I don't know, did the Japanese do their big assault this turn? That would explain it. No, that was last turn. So I may have just forgotten an attrition combat with the Japanese. Screw it, whatever. Because normally they do quite a few counters, but I think I had bought all the allowable builds from China. I'm not positive of that. I'm not sure though why there was a unit that was in the isolated box. Oh, that's what I can't build. That's why there's a unit still there. So I just don't know what's going on in terms of that. But getting back to the bookkeeping issue. So China doesn't get any growth. So you need to give them BRPs in this final turn of the year, whatever they need, which means you kind of balance that out. So you got to be doing the Chinese record sheet at the same time that you're doing the US record sheet, and you got to do the US and British one at the same time, kind of in conjunction with the, well, how many points do you need? By the way, this oil came through, and the BRP grant came through. I sent like $50 to Britain, which allowed them to build units and will even give them some growth. But, you know, it's just this nightmare along the lines of really the kind of comparisons you have to make in a game that's all about record keeping, which is after the Holocaust. I don't know, I think I've got that in this container now because the box is so shot. But it's just not what I want to be doing, you know? I don't want to be looking up rules all the time, and I feel like I have to play it at all near correctly, and I don't want to be doing this weird, you know, tax forms that really are, you know, looking into one to the other. Now, generally that's not the case. Generally you can just make an estimate, hey, I can send you 50 BRPs, that's what you need. But you want to optimize, you know, your growth rates and this, that, and the other. So if you were really playing it competitively, you would really, really want to work at those. Anyway, I'm not playing it that competitively, and I still had to spend too much time looking to make sure I'm not just burning money, trying to figure out where I can build transports and where I can't based on my shipping rates and everything. It's just, it's gotten so overburdened as a system. Interesting. The growth rate for Germany in the old Third Reich was 50% across the board. It's not here. It is this staggeredly increasing rate. I guess to indicate Speer's influence and some of the efficiencies that were added to the military. The production, gearing it more towards military. The Germans did not really gear it to military right away. Anyway, I was counting on that 50%. I don't know if this 2 is going to turn into a point. I don't really care, you know, it's only a point, but still, you gotta look it up, right? Each time I have to open this rule book and flip into, I don't know if it's my eyes or whatever, but I get this immediate stabbing pain through my head when I start looking through the index. Anyway, just adds to the pleasure, right? So, I'm doing probably the most fun for me in the game, which is the YSS. Every year you have to play with just pure bookkeeping stuff. It's not as much fun as something like EU, Europa Universalis' plots, which come each turn, and because there really isn't a hell of a lot to this except math. But it's less painful. There's usually less lookups. Although there is kind of an annoying transferring information from one sheet to the other. Keeping it all together in the booklet like this probably makes that harder to do in some ways, but it also keeps my sheets in one place instead of being scattered all over the place. If I were playing it multiplayer, obviously each player would just have their own sheets, which doesn't work because they'd have to have photocopies, right? Yeah, you can see how often I'm planning on playing this, right? I'm writing light and it'll erase mostly. Alright. So what's weird here is the growth rate for the Russians. It says RGT divided by 50. So what you would think is you'd take the RGT level and divide it by 50. And what would that mean? Well, I guess that's a percentage. So there's 14 divided by 50. That's 0.28. Now if that were actually a percentage, it would be, you know, very, very small. But then my thought is, well, it's going to be 28%. Nah, that's not what the rules say, though. For the rules, the RGT level at the end of the preceding winter turn, up to a maximum of 50%. So it's RGT or 50. So it's actually 14%, not the 28 that I thought it was going to be. Oops. No big deal. Last turn, I don't know if there was, I guess there was no money left, so no big deal. But there may have been a few bucks left, and I may have just dropped it saying, well, we're at such a small RGT, it must not be anything. Well, it actually would have been something maybe. I don't know. Anyway, that is not a divided by sign. That's what it turns out. Proceeding through the diplomacy phase, and honestly, this is true of most of what you're seeing here, because so little happens on the map game-wise. Unlike the old system, so much of the game is being played on these pieces of paper. And by old, I mean the original Third Reich, the advanced Third Reich. A lot of that was on paper too. There was a lot of addition there. But really, I did the research results, added some force pool, you know, some values change. Nothing too exciting there. It is confusing to me, the production system. The old production system in Advanced Third Reich allowed you to add some infantry and armor to your force pool. But in general, you could build your ASWs, you could build your submarines. Now you have to develop all of these things, your air transport, everything. It's not just, adding some more manpower, figuring out how to get more manpower on the field. It's a broader and maybe more reasonable system in this game, but it means constant lookups. Hey, what do I get for a success in this? Oh, I get 1 ASW, or I get 5 BRP's worth of air points, which translates to like an Army air factor, an interceptor, a bomber, and a couple extra points that I throw in, which could be naval air strength, whatever. But it starts creating this real nightmare of like what you get and what you don't. And it really is obnoxious. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about was the diplomacy. The Axis decide to trigger Vichy. Well, maybe not. I don't know. But I've come to one set of modifiers I don't even understand. For every 5 friendly ground or air factors in Vichy France, Corsica, and Vichy colonies which have not been attacked by the Western Allies. Okay, well, I guess there's none of them, but there's a plus minus, and I'm not sure which direction that should go, right? Unbuilt Vichy units, I'm never quite sure which way those should go either. It's like, okay, well, whatever they should do, they should probably prevent, and that's with all countries have this modifier, they probably should prevent the country from actually declaring war on anyone. That country probably doesn't want to get involved, but it's not stated that way. It's stated as a plus or minus. Now, that generally is only going to happen if the country is already aligned, which, it's kind of the Bulgaria type situation. And I think Romania did the same, where the country actually switches sides during the invasion of that country. So, you can kind of justify it in that situation. But this one is just, maybe it's a similar type of thing, but for every 5 friendly ground or air factors in Vichy France, Corsica, and Vichy colonies that have not been attacked by the Western Allies. Well, friendly to who? Friendly to the Axis? Okay, well, that would be none, right? Friendly to Vichy France? Well, that's quite a few, but I don't know which direction I would apply it in. So I'm just going to say that's a 0. That has to be friendly to Axis. But then we go to this next one. For every 5 enemy ground or air factors in Vichy France, Corsica, and Vichy colonies which have not been attacked. Now, both of these are written as plus minus, so obviously they could go either way, towards the Axis or towards the Allies, depending on how you want to judge it. Well, there are 9 factors in Morocco, but those factors have not been attacked by the Western Allies, but I think it's the colony, and the colony has been attacked, and I'm not quite sure how you would get Allied units intervening in a Vichy territory without them having attacked it. I just don't know. So I'm going to ignore that modifier too, because it doesn't make sense. Now, there is nowhere in the rules that I know of that explains this one. This is the only place where this is actually covered, I think. I'll go look at the Vichy rules, make sure I want to make this die roll, because, if I've got like a -9 to it, no, I don't. If I've got a +9, damn, man, Vichy's mine. And the U.S. can never invade Vichy without that, really. They can't do a torch without a problem. However, what I think has happened is these are canceled out by there being Allied units in here that haven't attacked it. I'm not sure how you can end up with Allied units in there, or that have attacked it. I'm not sure how you can end up with Allied units that haven't attacked inside Vichy. I know that the Axis can station units in Vichy. I don't know if that's a positive or a negative towards swinging Vichy over. Again, maybe it says something in the Vichy France rules as opposed to here in the diplomacy section, where you're actually trying to apply the rules and there would be perfect space to put it, instead of in that big compendium where you know, every access is a nightmare. But they have a little explanation, but it's just as cryptic. Friendly and enemy units is a modifier. When determining the modifier to Vichy French diplomatic roles from the presence of friendly and enemy naval air factors, only units in continental Vichy France, Corsica, and Vichy colonies which have not been attacked by the Western Allies, it clears that issue, are counted. Units in Vichy colonies which have been attacked by Western Allies are disregarded. Okay, I don't know how there would be enemy units in there or whatever. I don't know which way it's supposed to go. I don't know if German units there will stiffen the resolve or if they'll anger the administration into thinking, oh geez, you know. But either way, they're not going to affect this die roll. Clearly, a few strength points, if it could stiffen their resolve and make them declare war, would be very, very valuable to put in. And maybe too valuable, in my view. Anyway, we have a 2-point difference of diplomacy of what was revealed, and +2 because the Allies just attacked a French colony. So that gets me +4 to the die roll. I might have wanted to wait until, right now the Allies don't have any troops in Malta or Gibraltar. I haven't figured out how to SR these things, I really haven't figured out a way to SR stuff into there without getting hosed. So I had some replacement strength points in Malta and Gibraltar, and they're gone now. And basically those two locations are open for the taking for the Axis. We may see a big naval battle over them. And I get an 8, which is the Axis gain control of the Vichy French hexes, and they get 20 BRPs from Vichy France. This is a pretty strong result. That's going to give me further modifiers on other years, assuming, you know, that there's anything of value left then. Okay. I rolled a 6. I wasn't at +2, I was at +4. That's not an 8, that's a 10. Vichy France is now an Axis ally. They have just declared war on the Allies over Morocco. And that's pretty cool. That's about as good as it gets. So we're going to start seeing Vichy forces coming in. Now, you know, I forgot what to do. I stopped paying attention to these at some point. The spring one did not move, but there should be another French battleship here. So, and we had the BRPs to build units. So, here comes Vichy France. The Axis, I had some vague hopes of taking Malta because it's undefended, but it isn't really. There's 2 fleet task forces here. They each are at least 10 strength points. And something kind of gnawed at the back of my head from way back in Third Reich days, which is you can't invade something if there's a fleet there. I don't remember what it was with that. I think it was a 9-factor fleet. Now what it is a task force, which is 10 factors or more. And obviously I've got that both in Gibraltar and in Malta. What that means is I have a smaller force over in Gibraltar. And I started setting myself up to prepare for an invasion of Malta. But quite honestly, a port attack is unlikely to drop this below the 10 strength points, even if I throw all my air power in. On the other hand, if I send my carriers out to attack Gibraltar, that may not work either. So I've got kind of this ugly position where, yes, I'm in a good location where I can drop a lot of ordnance on the enemy, but I don't really have the ability. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I can get over to Tripoli, I bet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not quite, but I can get to here. And if I dig up an air base, I can move these guys. I can pre-move these guys out to here where they can reach. I really don't think that I'm prepared to launch the invasion until I bomb Malta into rubble, basically. I've gotten to the point where I'm just tired of looking stuff up, and I'm just kind of fudging it now. So what we've got here is the British fleet gets an air defense roll. And I had it all counted, but 6, 7, 8, 9. It's just getting too hard because I got to look up every damn little bit. 9, 10, 11, 12, 16, 19, 27, 30, 34, 46 strength points. I believe that's the defensive value. Or maybe it's every 10 or something like that. Because 46 sounds too much. Okay, so I've got 2 for defense of the port. There's none of this except an objective. That brings it to 3. There's a fortress also. That doesn't seem to be there. No, 3. So we're up to a 5 defense factor for the port itself. In addition, every 10 naval factors. Well, I don't remember. I got to recount, right? I mean, it was either 4 or 5. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 26, 29, 33. And now I'm at 45. So that's 4 more. So we're at 9 defensive factors. Any 5-factor battleships? No, the Brits don't build those. No CVBs. What about surprise? Could we have gotten surprise? Shit, I don't know. I didn't think we could, but it does make sense that it's possible to make a surprise attack. Hell, Pearl Harbor was one. Well, that's one I got to look up. The counter-air, I broke things up into squadrons to take out the British air that was covering there, which was all naval air. And kind of guesstimated where the losses happened, so I've got like 2 squadrons left. Those are Army Air Squadrons. I don't know what the hell to do with them. I assume after this operation that unit gets faded into here because I can't really have them kicking around there. For bombing factors, they're useless though, so I might as well just dump them in there, but I'm tired of making change. So after skimming, I can't find anything on surprise for hitting a land-based thing other than Pearl Harbor special case, right? So I would say that there's no way to surprise them. From what I can find, it looks like surprise only happens as a result of the search table thing. We're not going to worry about that then. Okay, so we were at some huge number, and I forget what it was, right? I think it's this 9. And we look on the air defense table. We'll be claiming 9 air defense points. I think this is going to be, it's in bomb points, which, as far as I can tell, ground-based air is a singular unit. I'm going to look to see the breakdown rolls for ground-based air because, hey, maybe they're supposed to break into 3 still for this, even though the stuff that's listed over here that I read doesn't seem to imply that at all. What I found in these rules is quite often things are not what they sound like they are, and you really do have to chase down every damn roll. Yeah, I said I wasn't going to do it, but you know what? That makes a big difference to the Axis. They had to break down to do counter air anyway, so what the hell. Everything I can find in this area seems to indicate that they don't break down. I couldn't find the breakdown rolls themselves, but it really looks like Army-based air is just really lousy at doing port strikes, which is not completely unreasonable. So, we're at this 9 factors. Did we have any air defense research? I didn't check that. I could all bet. And I think we do. Yeah, we have one of them. So we're at 10 factors now. These are not die roll modifiers. We roll straight up. Why is there a 12 plus then? Good question. The air defense is increased. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see any possibility that it can go above that. And there's no die roll modifiers written here that I see. Okay. So I think that 12 plus is bullshit. So we're going to destroy 3 and abort 2. Now, I believe this abort 2 can be sent in on another wave. I'm not sure about this because this is sort of like a naval battle. In naval battles, you get to keep piling that crap in even after it's been aborted, just on separate waves. So we have to now apportion it, and the apportioning is done per 19.6. So we got to put our rock here. Try to see. Okay, I think we take from the biggest group first and stuff like that. We won't worry too much about the rolls. Okay, so what did I say we had? Looked like it was 3 destroyed and 2 damaged. Well, we clearly have more of these. So we'll take 2 destroyed here, and I think this is just dead. It can't do anything. And we'll try to find the Germans here. That's not them. That's not them. They gotta be in here somewhere. Okay, this crap. These did have to break down into Army air squadrons, but since they took a loss, I think they're just destroyed. And we'll put them in the pile of lost German units. So that was 2. We have to take an actual air unit as well. That'll be one of these Italians. That's 3. Now 2 are aborted and don't get to make the attack. I would say that's 1 of each. It doesn't really make a bit of difference. And now we get the naval attack table, and for this, we get to look at all the British ships here. And we have Task Force 3 and 5. And what do I want to hunt? Well, yeah. You know, now we get to make number decisions, and this is very much like WIF. But unlike WIF, I'm not as familiar with the chart as I had gotten, at least eventually. So we got to kind of look here. So we're going to look at the air nationality DRM, the attacker. Well, that's a -1 for the Italians, I believe, even though it says -2 here. The Italians are crappy here. So since I have no German air left, that's where we are. Defender's naval nationality DRM. Well, we haven't made any advances in that. So we look here, and these are all Brits, so they have a 2. So we're back 1 now. And this is die roll modifiers, I guess. Okay, so we're going to be at -1. And we hit individual ships or bunches of ships with small stuff. Well, and I'm not sure where cruisers fit in there. Cruisers are their own groups of, are counted as light ships. So I can hit either task force. Well, I'd like to hit the 2 carriers, even though they're out of planes. I think hitting carriers is a good idea. So let's see, we'd like to do 2 points of damage. AS is air squadrons. Looks to me like 2 air squadrons, 3 air squadrons is likely to sink that. Okay, so we're gonna start allocating like this. Boom. Boom. Okay. We'd like to sink the big ships too. We got to get the points down, basically. So at 3 points each, 3 or 4 points. We're probably hitting around 5 factors for each of those. So 3, 4, 5. We'll go after these little ones because we're going to try to shoot down some of their anti-air capability is one of the things we're doing. Okay, and here we only have 4. Probably get the most success going after the cruisers. All right, so now each of these is going to be handled on its own. So I've got 5 factors against one of those 3-factor. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. 5 factors against one of those 3-factor battleships. And we're at -1 on the die roll. 7, we do 3 hits. That would normally be enough to sink it. But we're going to have to look up rules because we're in port. But that means we had a critical hit chance. So we'll back away and see what that does. Okay, so in this case, we've done this before, but why is this flipped over? Oh, this is the damaged ship. We roll a die. On higher than a 3, we sink it for good. Okay, so that thing's just broken up and gone. And I'll put it over here. And these Italian planes have finished their attack. Let's do the next one. And I'll put them back here because they're going to come in another wave. 3 against a 2. 3 air squadrons at -1. Oh, that's not so good. That's just a 4. That's going to be 1 hit on that ship. Now, 1 hit is a damage result, and we're not sure exactly what happens, but it would seem strange if it could just slip away. I know they can do that in whiff, but here I don't think it's going to allow that. I'll look that up after we finish the next attacks, which is again a 3 at -1. And we had a really nice die there that fell off the table. So this is again a 3. This is again going to be a 1 hit. Yeah. Which is a pity. We'd like to sink these things. And then here's against just the cruisers because the destroyers are, I guess, in a different squadron or something. So here I've got 4 strength points. Again at -1. And there I get an 8, which is going to be 3 hits. Well, 3 hits is going to be 1 cruiser bottomed out, and I believe that just sinks, and a hit on another cruiser. Okay, so these guys are just damaged. They've been turned into slow ships. They don't particularly get out of there, and I don't think I can get out of my port. I think my port attack just keeps going as long as the attacker wants to hit it. We can't try to sail out. It kind of makes sense. You know, we're not ready to be steaming underway. We can't break off contact or anything. We're in a fixed location. So I guess the Italians are going to do what they can to the British fleet. And honestly, they're taking less losses with the naval air factors. Now, when it comes to the Army air factors, because the naval air is squadrons, the Army air is full factors getting hit. That's about equivalent to losing, you know, a point of shipping to lose a point of air factor. So you might say, well, you shouldn't have risked those. Well, yeah, but I want to take Malta too, you know. Ships that are in port are being repaired while they're in port somehow during the strikes. So damage doesn't carry over. Something I kind of screwed up, but we'll try to make up for that as best we can. I just bottomed a battleship. I've sunk 2 of them over here, but now one's gotten bottomed, and I'm not sure what the hell happens to it. 20.521B. When a named ship is sunk in port, a critical hit roll is immediately made. But if the ship survives, it may be repaired. Prior to being repaired, it does not contribute to air defense or of naval units in the port, cannot move, and is eliminated if it is damaged again or if the port is occupied. So I'm going to leave this flipped over to indicate it's a completely damaged ship, and we'll figure out what to do with it at the end of this air combat. Basically, the Italian air can try to knock it out with more strikes, or they can just leave it there, and if they get the invasion off, they chase the ships, I guess, that are out away, and we can intercept them and finish them off. And whatever's left here, you know, that's on the bottom of the bay, I'll just be considered destroyed. The attack ended up being unsuccessful, I guess. We didn't get Malta, but four older battleships sunk, 2 carriers. That's pretty impressive for no ships sunk. On the other hand, the Italians lost quite a bit of their naval air, and they have a limit to how much of this they can build back each turn. So we're not going to see a big ability to do this. You know, this isn't something I can do every turn. I spent a lot of it. I don't know what my naval air recharge rate is, but it's like a couple a turn, except I think I have some research as far as this goes. So naval air training, I actually have 3 points of research for that, which actually means that I can probably build something like 5 a turn. So I'll be getting a fair amount of these back. And on the other hand, also the army air I can rebuild. The defenses of Malta are fairly hefty, though. With just 2 points from the naval side of things, it provides something like 6 points of air defense, which, you know, pretty much cut through my forces once they weren't very large anymore. I didn't go to the bloody end, although I did come back for 1 round to finish off that battleship. But I've got something like 5 air factors, naval air squadrons left for that. Now, I'm kind of doing things out of order because trying to intertwine this with what's going on up here and, you know, whatever's going on here, it's just going to be too complex. It's kind of like, you know, trying to add this, the Pacific into play at the same time. And I just don't see too much reason not to pay attention kind of to one front at a time. Anyway, that was more or less, I guess, what a naval port strike is going to look like, other than Pearl Harbor. When Pearl Harbor happens, assuming I get a surprise off, it'll be a little different. And now these ships have to return back to wherever they were based from. Now, the Brits could come out and try to intercept, but most of these actually don't go home. Just this does. These guys are all out on patrol for the rest of the turn. These guys are done, which kind of saves these forces from being picked off easily individually, I guess. More mobilization too. The Japanese failed kind of, they attempted a partial offensive up here to try to take this hex, but they only threw in 12 points, gave them a 2-to-1. They got the worst possible result, and then did an attrition result, which wasn't bad at all. You can see they knocked a lot of the Chinese in here. It's not going to be enough to surrender them, though. And but it does keep, you know, forcing them to spend more and more BRPs in that direction. That doesn't matter too much. The U.S. has so much money at this point. After what amounted to 2 more, so they got the Japanese tensions triggered up another level. The Japanese actually started improving their shipbuilding. The U.S. is improving shipbuilding on both sides because they also, every turn, they're getting a mobilization against the Germans at this point. Well, against the European Axis. And that's just huge. You know, their buildup, there's no way Germany can hold off against this forever. German air power over here hasn't been doing much. So I'm kind of considering I'm just going to start using it defensively. Maybe start trying to develop interceptors and the like. I'm not quite sure what the advantage of interceptors is versus regular air, except the interceptors don't have to be based anywhere, which is kind of cool. Like, if I'm getting attacked from the south or the north, it doesn't matter. I don't have to have my planes positioned. That's the only real advantage I have to them. These CVEs seem totally useless. I have to have 6 of them to have any effect. They start giving me a modifier. I built one, but I've got other things I got to do more than them. The Italians, they have 1 base point of air, so they were able to build 4 of their naval air back. And we should probably get some of these onboard carriers. But the Germans SR'd some of their air into place so that they can maybe bust into Malta next turn. I don't know. It looks like Russia may never get into the war. Anyway, we'll keep going. I guess we push into summer. U.S. expanding their torch landings. Morocco's fallen. We've got some replacement units. I don't have any English ones, which is problematic because if the English get hit here, we're going to have to take like our New Zealanders or something. And that's kind of troublesome. I'm looking at Egypt quite possibly falling before the American powerhouse can make its way across. Meanwhile, the British fleet at Malta really can't do anything. I can't move because I'd get hit by one of these other fleets. I did move the English fleet out of the Atlantic and to Gibraltar. So we got a few more battleships and everything there. Gibraltar is going to be pretty hard to take. Malta may well fall, and we're going to pay a huge price in terms of the British Navy for that. American fleet carrier up here. We've got some more power. We're not really worried about raiders anymore because they can't really move without getting intercepted. So the only thing we're worried about is the U-boats out here, and we've started putting some of our air power into the strategic warfare box. We haven't used it yet, but we've got some bombers. We just built bombers and interceptors and everything, so we actually have some significant strength that we can throw into play down there. Probably not enough to do anything as long as the German Air Force is based here in the Low Countries, but and you know, the northern French border. But we could actually shift it over down into the Mediterranean and start bombing Italy instead. We don't have a real base for that either, though. I think our air range sucks, so we've got nothing we can do there. Starting to transfer Russian units over here. I'm not expecting a war with Russia anytime soon, but you can see the Germans are in real trouble if those Russians start coming in. Anyway, that's where we are. I've kind of taken a step back, stopped worrying so much about the rules. Hey, if I get something wrong, so be it. It's better than coping with that thing. It's not like, you know, it's not like I'm playing what amounts to a competitive game no matter what. Anyway, I guess that's spring of 42, and it looks like we used up a lot of video, probably complaining or something. So I'll send this one up.